a mysterious, overgrown ancient village partially hidden within a dense, foggy forest at dawn. The scene features crumbling stone houses covered in vibrant green moss and tangled ivy, with broken wooden carts and ancient tools scattered around. Soft golden light filters through tall, twisted trees, casting long shadows and highlighting delicate spider webs. In the background, faint outlines of rocky hills emerge through the mist. The atmosphere is eerie yet enchanting, evoking curiosity and wonder. Realistic textures with muted earthy tones, deep greens, grays, and browns, create a sense of age and abandonment. Composition focuses on the central path leading deeper into the village, inviting exploration and discovery. A misty, dimly lit stone street winding through an ancient closed city, dense fog curling around weathered cobblestones and towering stone walls. In the foreground, a determined man with sharp, calculating eyes and dark, tousled hair steps cautiously beyond massive guarded iron gates. Beside him, a vigilant woman with piercing eyes and sleek, dark hair, dressed in practical yet elegant attire, scans the shadows with unwavering focus. The atmosphere is heavy with mystery and secrecy. Muted, cool tones of gray and blue dominate the scene. Subtle shadows hint at hidden dangers lurking nearby. Moody cinematic lighting enhances the tension, capturing a world where freedom is scarce and silence weighs heavily. Realistic textures of stone, fog, and metal emphasize realism and immersive depth. A mysterious, fog-shrouded cityscape blending vintage and futuristic architecture, where twisted iron gates and towering walls form impenetrable barriers. The streets are dimly lit by amber gas lamps, fused with neon signs glowing in cryptic symbols. Shadows of cloaked figures move silently between ancient stone buildings and sleek, metallic skyscrapers wrapped in glowing data streams. The color palette combines cold blues and steely grays with warm oranges, creating a surreal contrast of past and future. The atmosphere conveys secrecy and enigma, with intricate codes subtly etched into walls and holographic displays flickering intermittently, evoking a hidden world beyond common maps. Realistic textures emphasize iron, stone, and glass under a twilight sky heavy with smoke. A dimly lit, stone-walled chamber with cold gray bricks forming imposing walls, evoking a forgotten enclave. In the center stands Eamon Ricewell, a middle-aged man with sharp, calculating eyes and a calm, composed expression. He wears a dark, weathered cloak over a simple yet authoritative medieval outfit, suggesting quiet but firm leadership. His posture is measured, with one hand lightly resting on a worn wooden table covered in maps and old scrolls. The lighting casts deep shadows, emphasizing tension beneath his calm exterior. The background includes narrow, shadowy alleys glimpsed through an open doorway, suggesting secrets and a city protective of its hidden truths. The overall mood is tense, mysterious, and secretive, with muted cold tones of gray, blue, and brown, creating a somber atmosphere. Realistic style, cinematic composition focusing on the interplay of light and shadow. A realistic close-up scene of a determined man uncovering hidden secrets in a dimly lit old library filled with ancient books and dusty artifacts. The man, mid-30s with sharp features and intense eyes, gently pulls back an aged tapestry on a stone wall, revealing a secret compartment glowing faintly with soft amber light. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious. Shadows cast dramatic contrasts across his focused face. The color palette features muted earth tones with warm highlights from the hidden light source. Composition centers on the man's hands and face, capturing the moment of revelation and peeling back layers of deception. The background includes subtle hints of secrecy, such as locked chests and cryptic symbols etched into the walls. The mood is suspenseful, evoking intrigue and determination with photorealistic detail. A tall, imposing man named Orin Folk stands rigidly at the entrance of a heavily fortified city gate at dusk, his stern face illuminated by cold, flickering torchlight. Clad in dark, heavy armor with sharp, angular lines, his iron gauntlets clasp a large, ornamental sword symbolizing authority. Behind him, a wall of steel bars and watchful guards loom, casting long shadows that evoke a feeling of unyielding control. His piercing gaze scans the horizon with suspicion, lips pressed tightly, embodying discipline and unwavering loyalty. The scene is realistic, with muted earth tones and sharp contrasts of firelight and shadow, evoking tension and foreboding atmosphere in a guarded medieval city setting. Two sharply dressed men face each other in a dimly lit, smoky room, evoking a tense espionage atmosphere. Both exhibit intense, focused expressions, as if engaged in a fierce mental duel, eyes locking in silent challenge. The setting resembles a clandestine meeting spot with dark wood paneling, vintage leather chairs, and muted blue and gray tones creating a cold, suspenseful mood. Subtle reflections in a nearby window show blurred cityscape lights at night, enhancing the secretive vibe. One man leans slightly forward, fingers steepled thoughtfully, while the other clenches his jaw, veins visible, conveying endurance and inner resolve. The composition emphasizes their psychological struggle through close framing and chiaroscuro lighting, highlighting the deadly game of authority and cunning they play. A dimly lit urban alley at night under soft amber streetlights, featuring two figures working discreetly together. On the left, a composed woman with sharp features and dark hair pulled back, wearing a sleek dark cloak, quietly examining a faded parchment and eavesdropping on a nearby whispering crowd. On the right, a confident man with tousled hair and a rugged leather jacket, scanning a gritty brick wall covered in cryptic graffiti and hidden notes. Behind them, a tall, imposing figure with a hooded cloak, barely visible in shadows, watching intently from a distance. Mist curls around their feet, casting long, blurred shadows, enhancing the secretive and tense atmosphere. Realistic style with warm, muted tones, subtle contrasts, cinematic composition emphasizing stealth and intrigue. A dimly lit medieval city alley at dusk with fog curling around ancient stone walls, a mysterious woman named Thora standing in the shadows. She has piercing dark eyes, long, flowing raven-black hair, and wears a hooded cloak of deep midnight blue embroidered with subtle silver symbols. Her expression is enigmatic, a silent warning balanced between trust and danger. In one hand, she holds an old, rusted key glowing faintly, symbolizing the city's forbidden knowledge. Around her, blurred whispers and shadowy figures suggest murmurs of suspicion and secrecy. The mood is tense and suspenseful, with muted earthy tones contrasted by the pale moonlight illuminating her silhouette, creating a cinematic film noir atmosphere. A dimly lit ancient city at twilight, massive stone walls towering with cracks and creeping ivy, symbolizing barriers of silence. In the foreground, two figures, a young man with sharp features and dark hair, and a woman with flowing silver hair and intense eyes, stand close together, their expressions a mix of determination and unease, as they uncover hidden scrolls glowing faintly with ethereal light. Shadows and faint, ghostly silhouettes of vanished people flicker along the walls, representing disappearances and forgotten stories. The atmosphere is heavy with mystery and tension, muted earth tones with accents of eerie blue and soft golden glimmers. The composition is cinematic, focusing on the intimate moment of revelation within a vast, oppressive cityscape, evoking themes of secrecy, control, and silent fear. Realistic style, high detail, moody and immersive. A dimly lit, vintage study room filled with scattered open books and parchment papers displaying cryptic handwritten notes, some pages torn and others stained with dark ink blotches. In the center, a weathered wooden table is cluttered with magnifying glasses, old keys, and flickering candles casting deep shadows. A male detective in early 20th century attire, wearing a tweed suit and round glasses, gazes thoughtfully at a glowing, floating question mark surrounded by faint, swirling, smoky contradictions and blurred text fragments fading into darkness. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, with muted sepia tones contrasted by faint blue glows, evoking a deep sense of unresolved mysteries and hidden truth. The composition focuses on the interplay of light and shadow, symbolizing concealed secrets and paradoxes. A realistic portrait of Nerida Ainsley, a focused female scientist in her mid-30s with sharp features and intense eyes, surrounded by scientific equipment inside a dimly lit, futuristic laboratory located in an isolated city. The atmosphere is moody with cool blue and green tones, interspersed with subtle, warm amber glows from computer screens displaying biological and psychological data. Behind her, translucent holographic projections show fragmented human brains, neuron patterns, and abstract representations of altered perception and loyalty. Nerida's expression reflects obsession and deep curiosity as she studies the invisible influence of the city on its inhabitants' minds. Composition emphasizes the contrast between her contemplative presence and the mysterious, almost surreal environment. A dimly lit, futuristic laboratory set inside an enclosed, dystopian cityscape visible through tall glass windows, showing towering concrete walls and surveillance drones. Two characters stand at a sleek metal table covered with glowing holographic scientific data and transparent test tubes filled with swirling liquids. The woman, Nerida, has sharp features, intense eyes, shoulder-length dark hair, wearing a crisp white lab coat with subtle technological accents. Beside her, Kaylin is focused and determined, with short dark hair, casual dark clothing, holding a digital tablet projecting neural network schematics. The atmosphere blends cold sterility with an undercurrent of tension and urgency, highlighted by soft blue and muted gray tones, illuminated by neon cyan light. Subtle visual cues suggest psychological manipulation, like faint, shadowy silhouettes of people in the background, connected by thin, glowing threads, symbolizing invisible control. The composition emphasizes their alaya, a dimly lit, rain-soaked medieval city square at twilight, surrounded by shadowy stone buildings with flickering lanterns casting warm amber glows. In the center, three distinct figures stand in tense conversation. Eamon, a middle-aged man with stern features and a heavy cloak, looks weary yet resolute, embodying a leader weighed down by unseen burdens. Opposite him is Orin, sharp-eyed with furrowed brows, dressed in dark leathers, exuding an aura of watchful paranoia. Nearby, Thora, a mysterious woman clad in a hooded cloak with subtle hints of armor, gazes ambiguously, her expression unreadable, hinting at hidden motives. The atmosphere is charged, colors muted with contrasting deep blues and warm oranges, conveying a fragile precariousness in the community. Subtle rain droplets and mist blur edges, enhancing suspense and tension in the composition. A realistic scene set in a dimly lit, futuristic city where a determined woman with dark, flowing hair and sharp features studies intricate, holographic scientific data hovering before her. She stands on a rooftop overlooking a sprawling metropolis, shrouded in mist and neon glows, symbolizing secrecy and surveillance. Her intense gaze and confident posture embody hope and intellectual courage. The composition uses cool blue and green tones, contrasted with warm amber highlights, illuminating her face and the holograms. In the background, faint outlines of surveillance drones blend into the fog, while beams of light break through the darkness, representing science as a tool for liberation. The overall mood is tense yet hopeful, combining cyberpunk aesthetics with a sense of awakening and possibility. A dimly lit, narrow alley in a sprawling ancient city at twilight, shadows casting deep contrasts on weathered stone walls covered in creeping ivy and mysterious graffiti. A solitary figure, Kalen, a young man with sharp, cautious eyes and dark, tousled hair, stands poised between groups of stern city guards wearing worn leather armor and cloaks, their faces marked by suspicion. Kalen's expression mixes determination and wariness, holding a small, glowing artifact hinting at hidden knowledge. The scene pulses with tension, the air thick with mystery and fragile balance. Muted blues, deep grays, and warm amber street lamps create a moody, suspenseful atmosphere, capturing the delicate struggle between secrecy and revelation in this enigmatic urban landscape. A realistic, atmospheric scene of a mysterious closed city at twilight, bathed in muted blues and grays with subtle, warm glows from hidden windows. The city appears dense with towering, aged buildings surrounded by imposing walls topped with barbed wire. In the foreground, a lone figure stands on an elevated platform overlooking the cityscape, their silhouette sharp against the fading light. This person's posture conveys a mix of curiosity and determination. The mood is tense yet hopeful, emphasizing secrecy and the potential for revelation. Soft mist weaves through narrow alleys, enhancing the enigmatic atmosphere. Composition focuses on depth, light contrast, and intricate architectural details to evoke a sense of enduring isolation and hidden truth. Realistic textures, cinematic lighting, and a subtle color palette highlight the theme of concealed knowledge within a closed society. A dimly lit urban street scene at twilight, featuring a labyrinthine cityscape of towering weathered stone buildings interwoven with deep shadows, reflecting a microcosm of human fears and hopes. Narrow alleys whisper faint, ghostly stories, with subtle light glimmers suggesting hidden narrative. The atmosphere is dense with conflicting emotions, tension between control and freedom, captured by subtle contrasts of warm amber streetlights and cold blue shadows. In the foreground, diverse silhouettes of people congregate yet seem isolated, embodying a fragile community. The composition uses cinematic realism, muted earthy tones, intricate textures on stone facades, and nuanced lighting to evoke a mysterious yet evocative mood of an intricate mosaic of life and human spirit. A realistic scene depicting a young man named Kalen standing at the threshold of a mysterious, shadowy world. Half of his body is illuminated by soft golden light as he steps from a familiar bright forest into a dim, misty cavern filled with ancient symbols glowing faintly in blue and green hues. His expression is a mix of awe and determination. The background blends natural elements with subtle hints of arcane secrecy, twisting roots, ethereal fog, and cryptic runes carved into stone. The atmosphere is tense yet inviting, capturing the moment of entering a hidden realm full of unknown challenges and revelations. Cinematic lighting emphasizes contrast between light and shadow, realistic textures, and immersive depth. The composition centers Kalen, with the pathway ahead leading into dark mysteries, evoking curiosity and anticipation. A tense, atmospheric urban alleyway at twilight, two figures stand back-to-back in cautious alliance. Kalen, a sharp-eyed man with dark tousled hair and a leather coat, and Lysara, a determined woman with piercing eyes wearing a hooded cloak. Their expressions show trust forged through adversity amidst a complex social web. In the distant shadows, a looming figure, Sable Harrow, shrouded in a swirling dark mist like a gathering storm, hints at impending danger. The scene is bathed in muted blues and grays with contrasting warm street lamp glows. Moody chiaroscuro lighting emphasizes suspense and uncertainty. The narrow composition tightens the feeling of claustrophobia, while subtle smoke and fog add mystery and tension. Realistic textures, cinematic style, high detail, intense emotional atmosphere. A mysterious dusk scene of a lone man named Kalen standing on a cobblestone street at the edge of a closed, enigmatic city. The sun is just below the horizon, casting deep orange and purple hues across the sky, creating long shadows that enhance the mood of suspense and hidden danger. The city behind him shows an intricate mix of old Gothic architecture and fading modern elements, with tangled wires and worn signs hinting at secrets beneath. Kalen wears a weathered leather jacket and carries a satchel, his expression alert and thoughtful, eyes scanning the cityscape. The atmosphere is charged with tension and anticipation, with subtle fog weaving through narrow alleys and distant silhouettes of shadowy figures suggesting unseen challenges ahead. Realistic style, cinematic lighting, and a color palette dominated by warm sunset tones and cool shadows. A dimly lit urban alley at twilight, capturing a city that feels alive with secrets. A lone figure, Kalen, stands amid weathered brick walls covered in faded graffiti and glowing neon signs, their breath visible in the cold air. Shadows creep along the narrow street, suggesting unseen eyes watching silently. The scene is rich with moody chiaroscuro lighting, emphasizing contrasts between dark corners and faintly illuminated mist swirling at ground level. The background shows tall, ancient buildings with hidden windows and locked doors, hinting at mysteries within. The palette blends deep blues, muted purples, and subtle amber glows, creating a tense yet inviting atmosphere. The composition invites viewers to imagine the city's pulse and whispered warnings as Kalen begins a daring exploration into darkness and revelation. A realistic scene depicting a lone figure named Kalen standing at the edge of a dimly lit forest path at twilight. Kalen's face shows fierce determination, eyes glowing softly like a guiding light. The path ahead is shrouded in deep shadows and mist, twisting uncertainly into darkness. Warm golden light radiates from Kalen's chest as if a beacon, casting soft illumination on nearby trees and fog. The surrounding environment feels mysterious yet hopeful, with rich earth tones blending into dusky blues and subtle amber glows. Composition centers Kalen in the frame, emphasizing resolve amidst an obscure, challenging landscape. The mood is inspiring, evoking courage and steadfastness in the face of the unknown. Realistic textures on skin, fabric, and foliage add depth and immersion to the scene. A realistic, atmospheric scene showing a secretive tribal group gathered at twilight beneath dense, ancient forest canopies, where shafts of fading golden light filter through thick foliage. The tribe members wear earth-toned, hand-woven garments with subtle tribal patterns, faces partially hidden by shadows and natural face paint symbolizing secrecy and protection. Their expressions are tense but resilient, standing close together around a dimly glowing fire that casts flickering amber light, emphasizing the theme of forbidden knowledge. The environment is rich with moss-covered stones, twisted roots, and mist curling low to the ground, creating a mysterious and secluded mood. The composition is tight, focusing on the emotional intensity of the tribe in this hidden sanctuary, using a warm, muted color palette with highlights of deep greens and browns to enhance the realistic, immersive feel. A realistic ocean scene at dawn, endless deep blue water surrounding a small boat cutting through gentle waves, misty horizons separating sea and sky. At the prow stands a focused man with narrowed eyes against salty spray, medium-length dark hair, wearing weathered leather jacket and nautical gear. Beside him, a woman silently adjusting her rugged outdoor equipment, dressed in functional dark clothing with subtle tactical elements, hair pulled back in a practical style. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, soft golden light casting long shadows, subtle fog blending into the background. Composition emphasizes isolation and vastness, muted color palette with cool tones of blue and gray, contrasted by warm highlights on the characters' faces. The scene captures a moment filled with anticipation and unknown danger. A mysterious, fog-covered island at twilight, surrounded by calm, dark waters reflecting the muted orange and purple sky. The island's dense, ancient forest looms with towering, twisted trees entwined by creeping vines, their shadows tangled and deep. A solitary, weathered stone pathway leads to a dilapidated iron gate chained shut, symbolizing control and secrets, partially hidden by overgrown moss. Soft, eerie light filters through heavy mist, casting an atmosphere of frozen time and whispered secrets. Subtle hints of old, rusted shackles lying among fallen leaves emphasize restrained truths. Composition focuses on moody, realistic lighting, with a muted color palette of greens, grays, and dark blues, evoking suspense, mystery, and silence. A realistic scene of a dark, human fortress village at dusk, viewed from a slow-gliding wooden boat approaching the shore. Central figure Kaelin, tense and alert on the boat, gazes toward the imposing settlement. The village is enclosed by tall, rough stone walls entwined with iron reinforcements, guarded by stern, armored sentries led by Orin folk, whose relentless gaze pierces the dim light. In the shadows, Sable Harrow stands tall and authoritative, dressed in dark, worn robes, his presence commanding and oppressive but slightly obscured, casting a long, heavy silhouette. The air is thick with tension and subdued fear. Muted earth tones dominate with flickering torchlight illuminating harsh faces, creating a palpable sense of control and unyielding loyalty among the people. Moody, cinematic lighting with heavy shadows and claustrophobic framing enhance the oppressive atmosphere. A tense coastal scene at dusk, featuring Eamon Ricewell, a middle-aged man with weathered but dignified features, dressed in a worn, dark green cloak symbolizing his symbolic leadership, standing uncertainly at the edge of a rustic wooden pier on a small, rugged island. His expression reveals hidden turmoil, a mix of reluctant hesitation and faint despair, as he glances sideways toward two distant figures, Kaelin and Lysara, who stand quietly in shadows under stormy purple and gray clouds. The muted, cool color palette with deep blues and dusky purples reflects the mood of silent rebellion and fragile normalcy. The composition uses soft, diffused lighting to emphasize Eamon's guarded eyes and subtle body language, with rough sea waves gently lapping around him, conveying tension yet calm before an unseen conflict. A realistic, dimly lit underground corridor with cold stone walls and flickering torches casting long shadows. A slender woman named Thora Cade, wearing tattered dark clothes, blending into the shadows, leans close, whispering secrets to two figures, Kaelin and Lysara, whose cautious faces show determination and urgency. Thora's eyes gleam with intelligence and silent strength, framed by wisps of dark hair. The scene conveys tense secrecy and fragile hope. The composition focuses on their interaction amid a maze of narrow corridors disappearing into darkness. Colors are muted grays, cold blues, and soft amber highlights, creating a mysterious, suspenseful mood. Cinematic, high-detail, photorealistic style, dramatic lighting emphasizing the lifeline-like thread of whispered knowledge. A determined woman with sharp, inquisitive eyes and tousled dark hair pulled back, wearing a practical lab coat and holding a magnifying glass and ancient documents, stands amid a dense jungle clearing on a misty tropical island. Around her, subtle ghostly overlays of intricate patterns and behavioral charts float in the air, symbolizing scientific analysis uncovering hidden societal control. The background shows a secluded village with weathered wooden houses, subtly fenced by invisible barriers, illuminated by soft dawn light breaking through thick foliage. The atmosphere is tense yet hopeful, blending realism with a hint of mystery. Earthy greens, muted browns, and soft golden hues dominate the color palette, emphasizing isolation and revelation. The composition balances the woman in the foreground with symbolic elements representing concealed control mechanisms layered in a semi-transparent, ethereal way. A realistic, atmospheric scene set deep within a lush island's dense jungle, showing a small group of wary islanders clustered together, their faces filled with tension and guarded expressions. The vibrant green foliage contrasts with the heavy, ominous gray clouds gathering above, symbolic of the simmering unrest. Subtle shadows fall on their faces, emphasizing the seriousness of whispered conversations. In the center, a figure resembling Kaelin stands alert, eyes sharp, portraying a mixture of concern and determination. The composition uses a muted color palette with bursts of rich green and earth tones, highlighting both the serene natural beauty and underlying tension. The mood is charged, evoking suspense and fragile calm about to shatter. A tense nighttime scene depicting a heavily fortified military compound under ironclad security, commanded by a stern man resembling Oren Folk, standing alert in tactical gear near an entrance. In the foreground, two vigilant figures, Kaelin and Lysara, clad in stealthy dark clothing and equipped with high-tech gadgets, study a holographic map displaying patrol routes, entry points, and surveillance blind spots. The environment is dimly lit by cold blue and green security lights, casting sharp shadows, emphasizing the compound's imposing concrete walls and metal fences, topped with razor wire. The mood is suspenseful and dangerous, capturing the calculated patience and strategic planning in their expressions. Realistic textures, cinematic composition, and dramatic contrast highlight vulnerability within an otherwise impregnable fortress. A shadowy, enigmatic man stands in a dimly lit room filled with old maps and cryptic documents pinned on dark wooden walls. His sharp, calculating eyes pierce the gloom as he pulls shadowy strings attached to marionettes representing figures of authority. The atmosphere is tense, infused with cold blue and muted gray tones, highlighting an aura of ruthless control hidden behind a facade of protection. Soft, eerie light filters through closed blinds, casting intricate patterns on his stern face. The room's composition emphasizes secrecy and manipulation, with subtle hints of a hidden, dangerous secret symbolized by a locked ancient chest and a faded island map in the background, evoking an unsettling mix of power and menace. A dimly lit island village at dusk, with citizens walking calmly on the surface, wearing plain, muted clothing conveying outward obedience. In the foreground, a man with conflicted eyes, subtle tension in his posture, half hidden in shadows, symbolizing inner turmoil between survival and conscience. Nearby, a determined woman examines translucent futuristic data charts, revealing DNA strands and social control schematics, glowing faintly in soft blues and greens. The background features imposing, weathered stone walls crowned with vigilant patrols under a darkening sky heavy with unease. The overall color palette is subdued earth tones contrasted with cold neon highlights, creating a realistic, tense atmosphere of concealed rebellion beneath a facade of order. Realistic textures, cinematic lighting, highly detailed expressions and environment. A dimly lit forgotten courtyard at dusk with weathered stone walls covered in creeping ivy and moss, scattered with faded graffiti symbols etched into hidden corners, representing silent rebellion. A young woman with determined eyes and dark flowing hair, dressed in simple, worn clothes, gently touches the weathered symbols, illuminated by a soft, warm glow from a lantern nearby. The atmosphere is tense, yet hopeful, capturing the essence of quiet resistance. Subtle shadows hint at an unseen underground network operating courageously. The color palette features muted earth tones with contrasting warm highlights, realistic textures, and intricate details, emphasizing resilience and determination in a confined, secretive urban space. A dimly lit secret meeting at night under a dense canopy of dark leaves, with shadows partially revealing a small group of tense figures exchanging whispered information. The composition shows two factions blending cautiously. Ragged resistance fighters with worn leather jackets and determined expressions, and outsiders clad in sleek dark cloaks, faces half hidden in shadows. The atmosphere is heavy with suspense, trust fragile as glass, illuminated by faint, flickering lantern light casting long, sharp shadows. Background is a misty forest clearing with muted blue and gray tones, conveying secrecy and danger. Details include subtle tension in body language, wary glances, and a faint glimmer of old handwritten documents being passed between hands. A tense and haunting scene set on a remote island, featuring two figures, Kaelin and Lysara, standing close yet emotionally distant, their faces a mixture of fear and forced smiles, eyes reflecting deep psychological strain. The environment is oppressive with muted, grayish-blue tones dominating the palette, shadows creeping like invisible chains around them. The background shows sparse, silent villages with hollow expressions, mouths sealed by invisible pressure, embodying enforced silence. Subtle elements like faint fractal patterns representing mental conditioning subtly overlay the air, symbolizing the pervasive influence crushing individuality. Nerida, a clinical observer in crisp scientific attire, watches thoughtfully from the side, clipboard in hand. The lighting is dim with soft, cold shadows and muted highlights, enhancing the mood of psychological imprisonment and inner conflict. Realistic style, cinematic composition focusing on emotional and mental struggle, detailed F. A tense moment on a rugged island cliff at sunset, depicting a determined leader named Kaelin standing at the edge, gazing over a turbulent sea below. Their expression combines deep contemplation and resolve, embodying the conflict between old instincts and new insights. Kaelin wears weathered yet practical clothing in earth tones, the wind tousling their dark hair. Behind them, a fragile wooden structure half covered in shadow symbolizes an empire built on control, yet fragile with human frailty. The sky blazes with warm oranges and purples, hinting at the island's uncertain fate. The composition focuses on contrast between light and shadow, with dramatic chiaroscuro emphasizing the weight of leadership and the delicate balance between exposure and survival. The mood is intense, reflective, charged with quiet strength and vulnerability. A dramatic nighttime infiltration scene set in a dimly lit, high-tech island compound surrounded by dense jungle. 4 highly skilled operatives move stealthily amid flashing red warning lights and metallic corridors. Kaelin is agile, mid-leap over a security laser, while Lysara silently takes down a guard with precise hand-to-hand combat. Thora, crouched near an advanced control panel with holographic blue screens, guides the team with intense focus. Nearby, Nerida urgently tends to an injured teammate, applying a tourniquet with determined urgency, her medical kit glowing softly. The atmosphere is tense and chaotic, charged with kinetic energy and suspense. Vivid contrast of cold blue and red lights with dark shadows enhances danger and teamwork. Ultra-realistic style, cinematic composition, dynamic motion, and expressive faces capturing focus and crisis. A dimly lit, claustrophobic underground archive room filled with towering metal filing cabinets and scattered old documents illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows. In the center, a worn wooden table holds open files revealing detailed diagrams of human genetics intertwined with neural pathways and emotion-linked brain maps. The walls are lined with faded, cryptic posters blending scientific formulas and psychological symbols. A tired, shadowed researcher with sharp features and a lab coat studies one file, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. color palette is muted grays, cold blues, and sickly greens, emphasizing a grim, oppressive atmosphere. The scene conveys a secret laboratory masquerading as a sanctuary, evoking tension, unease, and the collision of humanity and engineered control. Realistic style, cinematic composition, high detail. A realistic scene set on a rugged island at twilight, with muted blues and grays dominating the color palette, symbolizing decades of oppression. In the foreground, a diverse group of islanders of various ages stand united on rocky terrain, their faces determined and hopeful, gazing towards a faint, golden light breaking through dark storm clouds above. The mood is tense, yet filled with quiet resilience and awakening courage. Subtle rays of warm light illuminate their expressions and the jagged landscape, emphasizing the dawning of collective strength. The atmosphere captures a powerful moment of silent rebellion, unity, and the fragile glimmer of hope breaking through darkness. Photorealistic style, dramatic lighting, cinematic composition, focus on emotional connection and natural textures. A realistic, atmospheric scene at dawn on a mysterious island coastline, featuring a small group of diverse explorers retreating thoughtfully along a rugged shore. Pale golden light of early morning penetrates a misty environment, casting long shadows and bathing the scene in soft, warm hues mixed with lingering cool blues from the night. The island's dense, shadowy jungle looms ominously in the background, its tangled branches and dark foliage hinting at hidden dangers. The explorers, wearing weathered expedition gear with backpacks and tools, display determined yet burdened expressions, embodying both hope and heavy responsibility. Composition balances foreground figures moving toward rising sun, while dark jungle shadows create depth and tension, evoking suspense and the beginning of a challenging journey. Realistic textures emphasize wet rocks, damp soil, and drifting fog for immersive mood. A tense, dimly lit war room with flickering candlelight casting long shadows. Two determined figures, Kaelin and Lysara, stand side by side over a large wooden table strewn with maps and handwritten notes. Kaelin, a tall, sharp-eyed man with dark hair tied back, wears rugged tactical armor. Lysara, a fierce woman with braided auburn hair and piercing green eyes, studies the maps intently. Behind them, the fragile alliance symbolized by a small glowing ember in an iron brazier flickers amidst encroaching darkness, hinting at both hope and danger. The atmosphere feels heavy with suspense and urgency, the color palette dominated by deep blues, warm amber tones, and muted grays. The composition centers on the intimate moment of strategic planning before an impending battle. A realistic cinematic scene depicting a small team of adventurers standing just beyond the dense tropical island's perimeter at twilight, the sky painted with deep purples and muted oranges. The island's lush shadows stretch ominously, the thick foliage whispering secrets as a dense mist creeps at their feet. Faces tense with anticipation and strategic focus, especially the leader, a determined young man with sharp features and dark tousled hair scanning the eerie calm. The atmosphere heavy with suspense, subtle movements in the undergrowth hinting at unseen forces shifting beneath the silent veneer. Use high contrast lighting to emphasize lurking danger within the serene environment. Focus on moody, muted earth tones with bursts of green and shadows to enhance mystery and tension. Composition centers on the team's readiness, blending natural elements with subtle hints of hidden threats. A realistic, cinematic scene of a determined, diverse team standing at the rocky shore of a mysterious island at sunset, waves gently carrying their small wooden boat away from the beach. The island is cloaked in mist and shadows, dense jungle with ancient ruins barely visible in the distance, evoking deep mystery and danger. The team members wear weathered, practical exploration gear, their faces resolute yet contemplative, illuminated by warm golden light fading into twilight. The atmosphere blends suspense and hope, capturing the themes of courage, trust, and liberation. Composition focuses on dynamic poses and intense expressions, rich, earthy tones with contrasting cool blues of the sea and mist for mood and depth. A realistic, cinematic scene depicting a group of people exiting a closed city at dusk under a moody, overcast sky. The city gates are massive, metallic with rust and barbed wire atop concrete walls, symbolizing restriction. The crowd is diverse, wearing muted, worn-out clothing, their faces showing a mix of hope and anxiety. Soft, diffused lighting enhances the somber yet hopeful atmosphere. The composition focuses on a narrow path leading away from the towering gates, framed by industrial elements like guard towers and faded peeling signs in Cyrillic. Dust swirls gently around tired shoes on cracked asphalt. The color palette is dominated by grays, faded blues, and earth tones, emphasizing realism and tension in this moment of escape and uncertainty. A realistic abandoned city scene at dusk, featuring two central characters, Kalen Draven, a tall, sharply dressed man with intense, alert eyes, standing motionless on cracked, uneven pavement covered with dirt and scattered debris. Beside him, Lysara Venn, a vigilant woman with keen eyes and a calm but focused demeanor, scanning shadowy alleys. The city shows decayed buildings with broken windows and faded, peeling paint, empty streets bathed in cold, muted twilight tones of blue and gray. Shadows stretch long and eerie, evoking silence and forgotten secrets. The mood is haunting yet tense, capturing the ghostly visage of a once vibrant urban place now overtaken by stillness and time, cinematic composition with strong contrasts and atmospheric depth. A vast, abandoned landscape shrouded in soft, muted twilight tones with a faint hint of warm amber on the horizon, suggesting a hidden story beneath the silence. In the foreground, cracked, dry earth with subtle textures leads the viewer's eye toward a solitary, weathered relic. An ancient, partially buried journal with worn leather binding, half open, hinting at secrets within. Sparse, skeletal trees with delicate bare branches frame the scene on both sides, their gnarled shapes adding a haunting yet alluring quality. A gentle mist envelops the midground, blurring distant shapes and enhancing the mysterious atmosphere. The overall mood is melancholic, serene, and inviting, with photorealistic details capturing the quiet narrative waiting to be uncovered. A dimly lit, abandoned market square at dusk with crumbling stone and brick walls covered in faded moss and vines. Near the center, a faint, ethereal shimmer glows softly, revealing a hidden trail of intricate, ancient symbols delicately etched into the weathered bricks. These symbols pulse gently with a mysterious blue-white energy, casting subtle light on the surroundings. In the foreground, a focused figure with dark hair and worn adventurer clothes cautiously approaches, their face illuminated by the glow, eyes filled with curiosity and determination. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, blending elements of decay and mystical discovery, executed in a realistic, cinematic style with muted earth tones contrasted by the glowing symbol's light. A realistic, cinematic scene featuring Nerida Ainsley, a determined female scientific investigator in her early 30s, with sharp facial features and intense eyes, stepping forward from dark shadows in a dimly lit room. She holds glowing scientific instruments emitting a soft blue light that illuminates intricate ancient markings on a rough stone wall in front of her. Her brow is furrowed deeply in concentration as she studies the complex patterns. The atmosphere is mysterious and tense, with cool color tones of midnight blue and charcoal gray contrasted by the warm glow of her devices. The composition focuses on her focused expression and the illuminated markings, capturing a moment of revelation amid chaos. Detailed textures show worn stone, subtle light reflections, and realistic shadows enhancing the scene's depth and mood. A realistic, moody cityscape at dusk, bathed in muted, cool tones of deep blues and grays, portraying an eerie silence that masks a troubled past. In the foreground, a diverse team of 4 explorers, including a determined young woman with sharp eyes, Nerida, pointing towards ancient, faded cryptic symbols carved into a crumbling stone wall. Beside her, a thoughtful man with dark hair, Kalen, looks heavy-hearted, sensing the gravity of the warning left by the original inhabitants. Around them, subtle shadows hint at the unseen presence of a mysterious figure associated with Sable Harrow, blending into the dim urban ruins. The composition emphasizes tension and suspense, with low, dramatic lighting casting long shadows, fog rolling through narrow streets, and a dark, foreboding atmosphere filled with hidden secrets. Realistic textures on weathered stone, faded graffiti, and worn clothing. A dimly lit crime investigation room at night, filled with scattered papers, photographs pinned on corkboards, and a flickering old desk lamp casting soft yellow light. In the foreground, a semi-transparent, shadowy figure, barely visible, looms subtly over the scene, its presence mysterious and elusive like a lingering specter. The atmosphere is tense and suspenseful, with a muted color palette of dark blues, grays, and muted earth tones. Slight fog or smoke curls lightly around the shadow, enhancing the enigmatic vibe. The composition uses depth of field to focus on the cluttered evidence table, with blurred surroundings, evoking a sense of hidden influence affecting the investigation without being fully seen or caught. A realistic, cinematic scene depicting a weary, middle-aged man emerging from the shadowy underbelly of a dystopian city at night. His tired eyes reveal heavy responsibility and deep regret. He wears a grime-streaked, worn leather jacket and stands amid damp, cracked stone walls covered with faded graffiti. Dim, cold blue and gray ambient lighting casts sharp shadows, enhancing the somber mood. Behind him, the city skyline is obscured by thick fog and ominous barricades sealed with warning signs. The atmosphere is tense, evoking a sense of controlled chaos and hidden conspiracies. The composition centers on the man's intense expression as he confides in an unseen figure, suggesting secrecy and distrust. Ultra-realistic textures and muted colors create an oppressive, suspenseful vibe. A dimly lit room filled with scattered ancient manuscripts and cryptic artifacts on a wooden table, illuminated by a flickering candle casting dramatic shadows on stone walls. 2 focused characters, a man and a woman in their early 30s with determined expressions, are leaning over a partially unrolled scroll covered in mysterious symbols. Their clothes are rugged but practical, hinting at explorers or scholars. The atmosphere is tense and urgent, conveyed through warm sepia tones mixed with cool blue shadows, creating contrast. Background shows a partially open wooden chest, overflowing with old maps and a vintage brass compass catching soft light. The scene captures intense concentration and the pressure to decode hidden clues before time runs out. A dimly lit, crumbling urban ruin at twilight, with fog weaving through broken walls and scattered debris. A shadowy, hooded figure resembling Thora Cade whispers urgently to a small group led by Kalen, their faces tense and alert. Surrounding them are rusty, ominous traps partially concealed beneath rubble, subtle wires and spikes glinting in sparse light. The color palette is cold blues and grays, contrasted with warm, flickering torchlight casting deep shadows. The composition emphasizes close proximity between characters and hidden dangers, conveying secrecy and high stakes. The atmosphere is charged with suspense and foreboding, capturing the perilous journey through a city haunted by conspiracy and human endurance tests. Realistic textures highlight decay and tension. A tense, dimly lit, futuristic security control room inside a dystopian city before its fall, filled with multiple surveillance monitors showing grainy black and white footage of checkpoints and narrow corridors. Central figure, a middle-aged man with stern yet regretful expression, wearing a worn dark security uniform with a high collar, short graying hair, and tired eyes, seated at a cluttered console covered with buttons, blinking lights, and communication devices. Harsh fluorescent lighting casts sharp shadows, emphasizing a bleak atmosphere of control mixed with paranoia. Visible cameras and sensors mounted on walls, metallic textures dominate, cold color palette of blues, grays, and muted greens. The composition centers on isolation and surveillance with a sense of deteriorating hope and suppressed humanity. A dimly lit, high-tech control room with holographic security panels glowing in blue and green hues. A focused man with short dark hair, wearing a sleek black tactical jacket, is pointing at a transparent digital map, displaying security nodes and encrypted data streams. His expression is intense, yet calm, reflecting deep expertise. Around him, multiple floating screens show complex algorithms, firewall symbols, and circuit patterns. The atmosphere is tense but controlled, with shadows highlighting the contours of advanced surveillance equipment and biometric locks. Use realistic cyberpunk aesthetics, emphasizing cool tones, reflective surfaces, and subtle neon accents to create a scene of strategic covert operations and tech mastery. Three explorers working together in a dimly lit, dusty underground chamber filled with ancient, half-buried computer terminals and scattered debris. Nerida, a focused scientist with glasses, examines holographic data streams with precision and calm rigor. Kalen, a sharp-eyed detective with a contemplative expression, intuitively scans fragmented digital records on a cracked terminal. Lysara, a practical problem solver with confident posture, interacts with mechanical tools nearby. The atmosphere is tense yet hopeful, bathed in cool blue and green ambient light from flickering screens, casting shadows on weathered stone walls. The composition centers on their collaborative dynamic amid relics of a forgotten civilization, capturing the fragile balance between skepticism and hope in high-resolution, hyper-realistic style. A realistic, dimly lit urban alley at midnight, shrouded in fog and shadows, representing a labyrinth of hidden truths. In the foreground, fragmented photographs and torn documents scattered on a wet cobblestone ground, symbolizing fractured histories. Silhouettes of three figures in tense negotiation, their expressions desperate and wary, hinting at manipulation and broken alliances. The walls covered with faded, peeling posters and cryptic graffiti, adding texture and a mood of decay. Cool blue and gray tones dominate with sharp, contrasting highlights from a flickering neon sign overhead. Detailed, cinematic composition emphasizing mystery, tension, and complexity, evoking a noir atmosphere of intrigue and fading trust. In a dimly lit ancient ruin intertwined with overgrown city remnants, Lysara stands resolute, her eyes filled with unwavering loyalty and determination as she supports Kalen, who is deeply focused, tracing intricate glowing symbols emerging from fragmented memories floating around him. Beside them, Nerida leans forward, her fingers hovering over a worn stone tablet with faint cryptic inscriptions, her expression illuminating moments of sudden clarity. The atmosphere is heavy with conflicting emotions. Hope flickers in soft golden light, frustration and grief cast subtle shadows on their faces, while a persistent resolve radiates from their postures. The color palette blends earthy tones with ethereal blues and warm highlights, realistic textures on weathered stone and torn clothing, capturing a tense yet hopeful moment of discovery and loyalty in a dystopian, overgrown cityscape. A tense urban night scene set in a dimly lit, narrow street cloaked in fog and shadows. In the foreground, a tall, enigmatic man with sharp, angular features and dark, piercing eyes stands partially obscured by a swirling black cloak, embodying the sinister figure of Sable Harrow. His presence casts long, twisted shadows across cracked pavement and graffiti-covered walls, symbolizing distrust and decay. Around him, blurred silhouettes of divided neighbors face away from each other, their expressions filled with suspicion and fear. The color palette is muted with deep blues, grays, and hints of sickly green, creating a chilling, oppressive atmosphere. The composition uses dramatic lighting and chiaroscuro effects to highlight the battle between hidden truths and looming darkness, capturing a moment before a psychological and ideological confrontation. A realistic urban cityscape subtly altered by unseen forces at twilight, with a female scientist named Nerida observing electromagnetic field anomalies through advanced holographic displays emitting soft blue and green glows. The atmosphere shows faint distortions and color fluctuations in the air, with shimmering particles suggesting fluctuating atmospheric composition. In the background, semi-transparent containment field barriers surround parts of the city, appearing like large, glowing domes with pulsating light patterns. The scene conveys a mood of scientific mystery and tense anticipation, featuring detailed lab equipment, futuristic data interfaces, and Nerida wearing a sleek lab coat with a digital tablet. The composition balances the eerie environmental shifts against a backdrop of modern architecture under a dusky sky. A dimly lit, futuristic laboratory with cold steel surfaces and translucent glass tanks filled with human-like figures suspended in glowing blue liquid. The inhabitants appear peaceful, yet vulnerable, connected by delicate neural wires to towering complex machines emitting faint, holographic data streams. The room is vast, sterile and shadowed, with a deep sense of isolation and ethical ambiguity. Soft, eerie green and blue tones dominate the atmosphere, creating a chilling mood. In the foreground, a contemplative scientist in a white lab coat observes the scene through augmented reality glasses, their expression conflicted. Hyper-realistic style, cinematic lighting, and a slightly desaturated palette enhance the unsettling yet realistic feel of this unprecedented experiment. A realistic, cinematic scene depicting a once thriving, isolated community now crumbling under pressure. Centered is a weathered, abandoned town, square at dusk, with faded banners fluttering, symbolizing lost hope and broken unity. Shadows of wary, distrustful townspeople with somber expressions gather reluctantly around a flickering, dying fire, their clothing rugged and worn. In the background, dilapidated buildings and boarded windows evoke silence and fear. The sky is heavy with dark, ominous clouds tinged with muted orange, reflecting tension and fading optimism. The atmosphere is thick with suspense, betrayal, and secrecy. Subtle details include scattered remnants of past celebrations, torn streamers, broken instruments, contrasted by creeping vines overtaking structures, symbolizing decay and concealed dangers. A dimly lit, abandoned urban street at dusk, cracked pavement overgrown with weeds, faded graffiti on crumbling walls. In the foreground, a diverse group of 4 young adults with determined expressions huddled around a weathered, complex puzzle map spread over a rusty barrel. Their worn, practical clothing and subtle dirt stains reflect struggle and perseverance. Shadows cast by broken streetlights create an atmosphere of silent warnings yet fragile hope. The background shows towering, oppressive concrete buildings enclosing the narrow street, symbolizing confinement. Moody, muted color palette with deep blues, grays, and soft amber highlights from distant lanterns. The composition conveys tension between captivity and the courage to escape, evoking emotional depth and uncertainty about the future. Realistic style, cinematic lighting, focused on human connection and resilience. A tense, dimly lit room filled with 5 focused figures around a cluttered table covered in scattered documents, digital maps, and glowing screens. Kalen, a determined leader with sharp eyes and a clenched jaw, stands resolute at the center, embodying a quest for redemption. Lysara offers calm support, her gentle but firm presence illuminating hope in the shadows. Nerida, contemplative and insightful, examines data closely, embodying wisdom amid turmoil. Orin, a tactical expert, points to security schematics on a holographic display, his expression serious and strategic. Thora, intelligent and daring, looks out a rain-streaked window toward a dark cityscape beyond the borders, symbolizing hidden truths and risk. The color palette features cool blues and muted grays with warm amber highlights to create emotional weight and resilience. Moody, cinematic lighting enhances the atmosphere of tension, purpose, and unity. A group of 5 determined figures gathered beneath a massive shattered glass dome of an ancient observatory at twilight. The ruined city surrounding them is bathed in deep blues and purples, with faint glimmers of amber streetlights breaking the growing darkness. The atmosphere is heavy yet calm, evoking reflection and silent resolve. The team wears worn tactical gear in muted earth tones, faces illuminated by soft holographic maps and blueprints projected softly from a compact device. Debris and overgrown vines creep across cracked concrete floors and rusted metal beams. The composition centers on the group's quiet strategizing, their expressions a mix of determination and hope, beneath the starry sky just beginning to reveal itself through the broken dome. Realistic style, cinematic lighting, atmospheric depth. A realistic scene depicting 4 diverse adventurers preparing for descent into a dark, ancient city at twilight, bathed in eerie bluish-gray tones with subtle, warm glimmers from distant fires. Nerida, a sharp-eyed woman with short dark hair and analytical expression, consults a translucent holographic map indicating environmental hazards. Lysara, a lithe figure with long braided hair, methodically checks tactical gear including ropes and climbing tools. Orin, a rugged man with weathered features, sketches escape routes on a parchment illuminated by a flickering lantern. Thora, a strong woman with braided platinum hair, secures a vintage radio communication device attached to her belt. The background shows the spectral, decaying city skyline shrouded in mist and faint ethereal lights. The composition focuses on teamwork and determination, with a cinematic mood, soft shadows, high detail, and atmospheric perspective. A dimly lit, ancient, ruined city at dawn with a soft, cold light breaking over crumbling stone walls and overgrown vegetation. 7 distinct figures stand scattered yet connected in the foreground. Kalen, a determined young warrior with rugged leather armor. Lysara, a graceful female mage in flowing deep blue robes. Nerida, a quiet scout blending into shadows. Eamon, a seasoned strategist with a weathered cloak. Orin, a brooding blacksmith holding a heavy hammer. Thora, a fierce shield maiden with braided hair and steel armor, and the mysterious Sable Harrow, cloaked in dark, tattered fabrics, face half hidden. The mood is tense with anticipation and dread, a silent city holding secrets about to be revealed. Realistic textures, muted earthy colors with cold dawn light, cinematic composition focusing on intertwined fates and looming confrontation, a cinematic, hyper-realistic night scene in the heart of an ancient city, illuminated by dim, amber streetlights casting long shadows across narrow cobblestone alleys. 2 figures stand at a crossroads, their expressions tense yet determined, dressed in modern dark leather jackets and worn boots, eyes fixed on a mysterious glowing map unfolding between them. Mist clings to the damp streets and low-hanging clouds obscure towering Gothic architecture in the background. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation and hidden danger. Colors are muted with deep blues, grays, and warm orange highlights. Cinematic depth of field, dramatic lighting emphasizing faces and the glowing map, capturing the moment before an epic journey begins, evoking suspense and mystery. A mysterious remote island shrouded in mist, called the Island of Oblivion, featuring dense tropical jungle with ancient twisted trees and vines. Scattered broken ruins of once grand stone structures, overgrown with moss and creeping ivy. The muted palette blends deep emerald greens, soft grays, and faint sepia tones evoking forgotten history. Soft, diffused early morning light filters through thick mist, creating a haunting yet serene atmosphere. A lone wooden boat rests half buried on a deserted sandy shore strewn with scattered shells and driftwood. The composition balances foreground details of tangled roots and scattered relics with a distant view of hazy cliffs fading into gray sea waves under a pale, cloudy sky. The mood evokes quiet isolation and the passage of time forgotten by the world. Realistic textures emphasize weathered stone, wet sand, and leafy foliage in cinematic style. A realistic maritime scene at dusk featuring a solitary wooden boat cutting through dark, choppy northern ocean waves toward a fog-shrouded island. The island is dominated by towering, rugged cliffs, partially obscured by thick mist, giving a mysterious and forbidding atmosphere. The sky is overcast with muted gray and blue tones, diffusing soft, ambient light. On the boat, a lone male figure with dark hair and weathered clothing, embodying Caelan Draven, focused and determined. In the background, shadowy outlines of ancient stone structures peek through the fog, hinting at the secretive settlement of Obscura. The overall composition evokes suspense and intrigue with a cool color palette and cinematic realism, emphasizing isolation and the watchful presence of an unseen ruler. A mysterious island shrouded in dense fog with dark, turbulent waters encircling it under a stormy, overcast sky. Foreboding cliffs rise sharply from the sea, their jagged edges shadowed and wet, dripping with mist. In the foreground, a lone figure cloaked in a dark, weathered coat stands on a rocky shore, peering toward the island. Dim lantern light flickers from a distant, crooked lighthouse, barely visible through the gloom. The atmosphere is tense and ominous, evoking hidden dangers and secret plots. Rich, earthy tones blend with cold blues and grays, emphasizing mystery and suspense. The scene captures shadowy politics and unseen agendas, realist style, cinematic lighting, cinematic wide-angle composition, moody and immersive realism. A tense maritime scene at dusk with Lysara Ven, a vigilant female aide in her early 30s, standing on a wooden ship deck. She gazes sharply toward a foreboding island silhouette featuring jagged cliffs and dark, oppressive architecture. Her expression is determined and alert, dressed in a practical dark coat blending military and explorer styles. The atmosphere is charged with tension and anticipation, emphasized by muted, cool tones of deep blues and grays, contrasted with warm amber glows from sparse ship lanterns. In the background, a shadowy figure of Eamon Ricewell, a stern middle-aged man with austere features and formal dark attire, stands on the rocky shore symbolizing puppet governance. Sparse radio chatter visuals float subtly in the air, adding a sense of secrecy and unease. The composition balances a close-up on Lysara with a wide view of the island, creating a mood of mystery and power struggle. Realistic lighting highlights textures of weathered wood, rough stone, and a mysterious woman named Sable Harrow standing on a rugged, mist-covered island cliff at dawn, her dark flowing cloak blending with the shadows around her. Her piercing amber eyes glow faintly, exuding an aura of secret power. She has long, raven-black hair, partially obscuring a face both haunting and regal, illuminated by the soft golden light breaking through heavy gray clouds. The rocky island terrain behind her is jagged and wild, with twisted ancient trees and faint ruins hinting at forgotten secrets. The atmosphere is tense and mystical, with swirling fog enveloping the scene, capturing an enigmatic mood of hidden strength and island mystery. Realistic style, cinematic lighting, muted cool tones mixed with warm highlights. A tense, foggy harbor at dusk with dense, heavy air filled with silent dread. Two figures, Kaelin and Lysara, cautiously entering a weathered seaside settlement shadowed by muted wooden buildings and narrow, winding alleys. Foreground features Orin Falk, the stern head of security, a tall, muscular man with cold, unyielding eyes and a stern expression, dressed in dark armored leather with harsh metal accents, standing rigidly near a watchtower. Dim lanterns cast flickering amber light, creating deep shadows and highlighting the oppressive atmosphere. Moody color palette of muted grays, deep blues, and rusty browns enhances tension and betrayal. Composition centers on Orin's piercing gaze, surveying the newcomers as mist curls around their feet, evoking foreboding and control. Cinematic realism, atmospheric depth, high detail. A sharply focused female scientist in her mid-30s with intense, alert eyes stands confidently in a dimly lit laboratory filled with complex scientific equipment and glowing test tubes. She wears a crisp white lab coat with subtle hints of wear, her dark hair pulled back tightly. The background features shadowy island flora, visible through large windows, blending nature with technology. Soft, eerie blue and green lighting casts an unsettling glow, emphasizing the ethical ambiguity of her experiments. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, highlighting intelligence and control rooted in knowledge rather than brute force. The composition centers on her poised yet enigmatic expression, capturing a blend of determination and moral complexity. Realistic, cinematic style with high detail and moody contrasts. A realistic, atmospheric town square in late afternoon light, narrow cobblestone streets twisting through a dense maze of old, weathered buildings with cracked, faded facades, showing signs of former grandeur and recent decay. The color palette features muted earth tones, grays, and subtle greens, with soft shadows casting a somber mood. Local figures dressed in simple, worn clothing hurry through the scene, avoiding eye contact, faces tense and wary, embodying a silent oppression. Composition centers on a distant figure with sharp instincts, standing slightly apart, tense and alert, hinting at hidden dangers beneath the surface of everyday life. The scene conveys a palpable tension, with subtle visual storytelling elements like torn posters and barred windows, evoking a place caught between tradition and unseen tyranny. Dimly lit urban alley at night, shadows cast by flickering neon signs, thick fog weaving through narrow streets. A solitary woman, Thora Cade, clad in a dark leather jacket and hood, stands beneath a cracked street lamp, her face half hidden in shadow, eyes sharp with secret knowledge. In one hand, she holds a worn envelope sealed with a mysterious emblem, the other tucked into her pocket. Behind her, faded brick walls covered in graffiti, wet pavement reflecting cold blue and purple hues. The atmosphere is tense, mysterious, charged with unspoken danger and fragile trust. Composition focused on intimate close-up and deep perspective. Cinematic noir style with realistic textures and muted colors. A tense, dimly lit laboratory interior on a remote island, cluttered with scientific instruments, glowing computer screens, and scattered research notes. At the center stands Nerida, a young woman with sharp features and intense eyes, filled with a mix of scientific curiosity and deep anxiety. She wears a lab coat stained with ink and faint dirt marks, her posture tense yet determined. The background shows eerie shadows, hinting at hidden, sinister experiments, part organic machinery merging with island flora. The atmosphere is charged with suspense and internal conflict, highlighted by moody blue and green lighting casting sharp contrasts. In the shadows, faint silhouettes suggest blurred lines between protector and oppressor, capturing the fragile balance of control and uncertainty. Realistic details, cinematic composition, high resolution, a dimly lit, rustic tavern interior at dusk, long shadows stretching over cracked, ancient stone walls visible through a small window. 3 figures sit around a worn wooden table: Kaelin, a determined young leader; Lysara, a sharp-eyed woman with a guarded expression; and Aemon, an older man showing deep fatigue, his face etched with worry and hidden burdens. Aemon's posture reveals tension and inner conflict, hands loosely clenched, eyes haunted by unseen forces. Warm orange and amber lighting from flickering candles contrasts with cool shadows, creating a tense and secretive atmosphere. The background is cluttered with aged barrels, wooden beams, and faded tapestries, evoking a medieval island setting under silent oppression. Realistic, cinematic composition with subtle chiaroscuro enhancing mood and emotional weight. A dimly lit, dystopian city street at night, cloaked in deep shadows and muted blues, reflecting an atmosphere of paranoia and tension. Narrow alleys lined with crumbling walls, covered in eerie, chaotic graffiti scrawls, resembling whispered warnings. 2 silhouetted patrol figures in worn, dark uniforms with subtle, glowing insignias, moving vigilantly under flickering street lamps. In the foreground, a tense conversation between a worn but hopeful young man and a cautious elderly woman, their faces illuminated by faint, cold light, showing fear and resilience intertwined. The composition captures a claustrophobic urban environment with oppressive surveillance drones subtly hovering above, casting faint red glows, evoking a haunting and suspenseful mood of survived courage beneath authoritarian watchfulness. A dimly lit room with a shadowy woman standing behind a translucent curtain, her silhouette looming like a ghostly specter. She wears an elegant dark gown with subtle, intricate patterns resembling chessboard motifs. Her eyes glow faintly with cunning intelligence, lips curved in a calculating smile. In front of her, a large ornate wooden chessboard sprawls across a heavy table, pieces arranged mid-game. The atmosphere is tense and mysterious, colored in muted tones of deep blues, blacks, and hints of cold silver, emphasizing psychological isolation. Flickering candlelight casts long, warped shadows, enhancing the mood of manipulation and silent power. The background shows a blurred island landscape through a rain-splattered window, symbolizing isolation. The scene captures the duality of charm and menace, mastery and peril, in a high-stakes strategic game. A dimly lit, narrow alley at dusk on a weathered island town, with muted earthy tones and subtle shadows, creating a tense atmosphere. 2 figures stand close in a fleeting moment. A determined young woman with sharp eyes, dressed in worn but practical clothes, discreetly slipping a crumpled, aged envelope into the hand of a contemplative young man wearing a rugged jacket. The envelope shows signs of wear and secrecy. In the background, vague outlines of surveillance equipment and watchful citizens blending into the environment hint at hidden oppression. The scene captures a covert exchange, charged with urgency and silent rebellion, emphasizing distrust, control, and awakening beneath a fading golden light. Realistic textures, cinematic framing, medium shot, moody and suspenseful mood. A dimly lit, high-tech laboratory on a remote island at night, filled with eerie glowing screens displaying complex psychological conditioning data and invasive surveillance device schematics. In the foreground, 2 shadowy figures, a determined man and a thoughtful woman, whisper intently while piecing together holographic maps and charts projecting from a sleek table. The atmosphere is tense and chilling, evoking a fusion of scientific precision and oppressive control. The island, visible through large panoramic windows, appears ominous, shrouded in mist with subtle hints of watchtowers and hidden cameras embedded in dense foliage. The color palette features cold blues, dark grays, and stark whites, highlighting the sinister blend of technology and tyranny. Realistic style, cinematic lighting emphasizing suspense and secrecy. A dimly lit, atmospheric scene on a rugged island at twilight, featuring Lysara, a determined woman with sharp eyes and resolute expression, her dark hair pulled back tightly, dressed in practical, weathered clothing. She stands firm beside a rugged companion, both surrounded by shadows and mist swirling around ancient stone ruins, half buried in overgrowth. The background hints at a stormy sky fading into night, conveying tension and mystery. Their faces illuminated by a faint, warm light from a hidden lantern, symbolizing hope amid danger. The composition uses muted earth tones with subtle, deep blues and grays, creating a mood of suspense, secrecy, and unwavering loyalty amidst betrayal and hidden truths. Realistic textures emphasize the roughness of the terrain and the characters' resilience. A dimly lit, tense scene set on a foggy, rocky island shore at dusk, featuring two groups of people. One being Eamon and the visiting team, sharing wary, cautious expressions as they lean close, whispering secrets. Shadows loom as armed guards in dark, rugged uniforms patrol the background, their stern faces alert, watching over the uneasy meeting. The atmosphere is heavy with suspense and fragile hope, highlighted by muted blues and grays with flickering warm lantern light casting long shadows. The rough sea crashes softly behind, symbolizing danger beneath calmness. Compositionally, focus on tight framing around the whispering figures, contrasted against distant, imposing guards to emphasize tension and the fragile bonds forming under threat. Realistic style, high detail, cinematic lighting, moody and dramatic mood. A tense, cinematic scene at dusk on a desolate island shore, where a determined young woman named Thora stands firmly, clutching ancient, weathered documents glowing faintly with mysterious symbols. Her expression is resolute, yet anxious, eyes fixed on a distant silhouette of Kalen, a conflicted man shadowed by gloom and turmoil. The island behind them is dark and foreboding, dense with twisted trees and creeping mist symbolizing hidden secrets. Dim twilight filters through heavy clouds, casting cold blue and muted gray tones, emphasizing suspense and a fragile balance between hope and doom. Composition centers on Thora, stepping forward with evidence, the atmosphere thick with tension, illuminated by a faint, ethereal light breaking through the darkness, capturing the pivotal moment where truth begins to emerge and destinies are forever changed. A somber and atmospheric scene depicting a small team of 5 weary explorers standing on the rocky shore of a mist-shrouded island at twilight. The island looms dark and mysterious behind them, dense with shadowy, ancient trees and faint silhouettes of ruined structures barely visible through thick fog. The explorers wear rugged, weathered clothing with subtle, futuristic gear, expressions heavy with the burden of dark truths uncovered. The sky is clouded with muted purples and deep blues, casting a cold, ethereal light. In the foreground, crashing waves reflect the dim light, while subtle, ghostly shapes suggest hidden horrors beneath the surface. The overall mood is tense, contemplative, and filled with quiet dread, evoking a sense of silent fear and impending consequences about to unfold far beyond the island. Realistic style, cinematic lighting, wide composition emphasizing isolation and solemnity. A realistic scene at dawn with soft golden light casting fragile reflections on calm, expansive waters stretching to a distant horizon under a pastel sky. In the foreground stands Kalen, a determined young man with short dark hair and rugged features, dressed in weathered leather and linen travel gear, gazing toward the unknown. The atmosphere conveys a mix of hope and tension, with subtle mist rising from the water. Behind Kalin, faint silhouettes of ancient ruins hint at secrets and mysteries unresolved. The composition focuses on the balance between light and shadow, evoking themes of courage, truth, and the ongoing journey. The color palette includes warm ambers, soft blues, and muted earth tones, creating an emotional, cinematic mood. A dramatic and realistic scene depicting the last frontier of freedom at dusk, featuring a solitary figure standing on a rugged cliff overlooking a vast, stormy ocean. The person wears weathered, dark clothing with subtle, futuristic elements, showing resilience and determination. The sky is a turbulent blend of deep purples, fiery oranges, and smoky grays, with heavy clouds parting slightly to reveal a distant, faint sunrise symbolizing hope. The cliff is jagged, covered in sparse, wind-swept grass and rocks. The atmosphere is tense yet inspiring, with dynamic lighting casting long shadows and emphasizing the raw emotion of defiance and solitude. The composition is balanced, focusing on the figure's silhouette against the expansive, chaotic seascape. Hyper-realistic, cinematic framing, with high detail on textures and mood, evoking a powerful narrative of standing firm at the edge of freedom. A dimly lit, claustrophobic urban fortress at twilight, towering steel walls enclosing a mysterious city shrouded in dense morning mist, casting blurred silhouettes along the cold metal surfaces. In the foreground, a lone figure, Kalin Draven, is depicted wearing weathered, dark leather armor, with sharp, intense eyes reflecting determination and hidden secrets. The atmosphere is charged with tension, a silent whisper of rebellion and confinement. Soft, muted blues and grays dominate the palette, accented by faint amber glows from distant lanterns deep within the city. The composition focuses on the contrast between harsh industrial architecture and the restless human spirit yearning for freedom beyond the metal barriers. Realistic textures, subtle reflections, cinematic lighting, and a slightly foggy haze evoke a mood of suspense and imminent conflict. A dark, oppressive urban street scene at twilight, where looming Gothic buildings cast long, suffocating shadows over narrow alleys and cobblestone roads. A heavy, almost tangible darkness hangs in the air, infused with an eerie greenish hue, symbolizing the suffocating influence of a malevolent force named Sable Harrow. The atmosphere is tense and claustrophobic, with mist creeping low along the ground and twisting around iron street lamps, flickering with dim, sickly yellow light. In the distance, vague outlines of twisted, grotesque statues and snarling gargoyles peer down menacingly, blending into the shadows. The composition is tightly framed from a low angle to emphasize the overwhelming dominance of the architecture and shadow, evoking a sense of dread and hopelessness, rendered in ultra-realistic detail with cinematic lighting and muted colors. A tense, dimly lit corridor with labyrinthine architecture featuring steel and concrete walls covered in shadows. Surveillance cameras hang from the ceiling like silent, ominous sentinels. In the foreground, a determined young man with intense, resolute eyes stands close beside a composed woman with sharp, intelligent features, her calm expression contrasting the palpable tension around them. Both wear sleek, dark tactical clothing blending modern and slightly futuristic elements, their posture ready and alert. The atmosphere is heavy with suspense, the air thick as if a storm is imminent. Dim, cold, bluish lighting mixed with muted grays enhances the mood of looming danger and silent rebellion. A realistic, cinematic scene set at dusk in a dimly lit war room with aged stone walls and flickering candlelight casting warm shadows. Centered is Eamon Risewell, a strong, middle-aged man with steady hands and a determined expression, dressed in rugged, dark leather armor with subtle battle scars embodying both resolve and compassion. Opposite him stand Kalin and Lysara, youthful yet fierce, wearing weathered cloaks and practical gear suitable for escape and conflict. Their intense, unspoken understanding radiates through their locked eyes as they lean over a large, weathered map scattered with miniature figurines representing closed settlements. The atmosphere is tense yet hopeful, enhanced by muted earth tones, soft blue twilight filtering through a narrow window, and a subtle glow around the trio, symbolizing their alliance and unwavering conviction to break the chains of tyranny. The composition is intimate, focused closely on the trio's faces and hands, conveying unity in Sha. A realistic female scientist with sharp, intelligent eyes and shoulder-length dark hair steps confidently into a glowing circular holographic interface projecting abstract cityscapes and data streams. She wears a sleek lab coat over modern tech wear, illuminated by cool blue and green lights. Surrounding her are faint ghostly images of barred fences, heavy doors, and blurred human faces representing manipulated memories and emotions. The background is dim and high-tech, evoking a secretive laboratory controlling environmental and psychological energies. Her expression is determined and resolute, symbolizing the fight against oppression through science. The scene balances darkness and hope with subtle neon highlights, capturing a tense yet inspiring atmosphere. Realistic detailed textures, cinematic lighting, high contrast. A stealthy female figure, cloaked in dark, tattered urban garb, moves silently through shadowed, narrow city alleys at night. Her sharp eyes glint with determination as she slips past imposing guards, clad in black uniforms, their faces obscured by intimidating masks. The scene captures a gritty, dystopian city under harsh authoritarian rule, with cold steel buildings looming and flickering neon signs throwing eerie glows on wet cobblestone streets. Mist swirls low, blending with distant silhouettes of patrolling soldiers. The atmosphere is tense and suspenseful, filled with danger and hope. The woman carries faintly glowing secret messages in a small satchel, embodying the spirit of rebellion and silent resistance. Realistic lighting highlights subtle facial expressions, urban textures, and the contrast between oppressive shadows and faint light. Epic confrontation atop the tallest city tower during a stormy, windy night. Two figures locked in intense standoff. Kalen, a determined young man with fierce eyes, glowing with fiery conviction, dressed in worn, rugged clothing symbolizing hope and resistance. Opposite stands Sable Harrow, a cold, calculating woman with piercing, icy eyes, draped in dark, elegant attire embroidered with subtle fear motifs. The stale wind sweeps swirling fog and tattered banners around them, highlighting the electric tension. The city below is blurred under a dense mist, neon lights struggling to pierce the gloom. The composition uses dramatic lighting with sharp contrasts, casting long shadows and emphasizing their emotional clash. Moody blues and grays dominate, with flickers of fiery orange near Kalen symbolizing truth, cutting through deception. Realistic textures and cinematic atmosphere evoke a moment of ultimate reckoning. A dimly lit war room filled with ancient maps, glowing lanterns, and scattered battle plans. At the center, a focused woman with sharp features and determined eyes, dressed in practical, slightly worn tactical attire, commands the scene. She gestures decisively, coordinating strategy with calm intensity, embodying empathy balanced with brilliance. Nearby, a stalwart man with a steady gaze, strong posture, and rugged rebel clothing rallies a diverse group of devoted followers, their expressions resolute and inspired. Warm tones of firelight contrast with cool shadows, creating a mood of tension and hope. The background hints at barricaded city walls, symbolizing unyielding resistance. Ultra-realistic style with cinematic lighting and deep emotional atmosphere. A realistic urban scene at dusk depicting a diverse group of people in a city neighborhood awakening from a deep psychological trance. Central figure, a determined woman with focused eyes and scientific equipment, discreetly deploying sleek, futuristic devices emitting soft blue lights. Around her, residents begin to stir, expressions shifting from blank apathy to vivid realization and hope. The architecture is worn but detailed, with cracked walls and faded posters symbolizing oppression. The atmosphere is charged with a dramatic mix of soft twilight hues, deep purples, warm oranges, contrasted by the cool glow of the devices. Faces filled with emerging courage and rekindled dreams. Composition emphasizes close-up interactions and wide shots of streets coming alive, creating an emotional and hopeful mood of awakening and resistance. A tense, dimly lit medieval throne room with sable harrow, a fierce woman wearing dark, weathered armor, and a cracked jeweled crown clutching the edge of a grand stone throne. Her eyes flash with desperation and defiance. Around her, shadowy figures whisper and scowl, embodying mistrust and discord. In the background, Thora, a cunning woman in muted leather garb, stealthily reveals hidden documents exposing spies. Outside a large, barred window, Orin Falk, a cold, stern man in rigid, authoritative uniform, commands brutal city guards clad in dark metal armor, enforcing a harsh crackdown. The atmosphere is charged with tension, muted earth tones with splashes of crimson, dramatic chiaroscuro lighting emphasizing the conflict and resistance spirit, realistic style, cinematic composition focusing on psychological intensity. A realistic, panoramic view of a sealed city perched atop rugged cliffs under a dramatic, overcast sky, symbolizing a final bastion between chains and emancipation. The architecture blends battered concrete fortresses with faint glowing cracks, signifying suppressed spirits yearning for freedom. In the foreground, diverse inhabitants with determined expressions, dressed in muted earth tones and worn garments, unite hand in hand, creating a human chain that transcends barriers. The mood is tense yet hopeful, with dynamic lighting casting deep shadows contrasting with soft rays breaking through clouds. Background shows sprawling connected settlements with visible scars and subtle signs of resilience. The composition emphasizes unity, courage, and imminent transformation, evoking a powerful struggle for liberty captured with cinematic realism. A realistic, dramatic scene set in a dimly lit urban environment where Kaelin Dreven, Lysara, Nerida, Aemon, and Thora stand united at the forefront of a rebellion. The group is diverse, dressed in worn but resilient clothing with subtle medieval and fantasy influences, faces showing determination and hope. Behind them, crumbling walls and shadows of a once oppressive city fade into warm, golden light, symbolizing emerging freedom. The composition centers on Kaelin gripping a broken chain, symbolizing liberation, while the others support him with expressions of solidarity and strength. The mood is intense, yet hopeful, with dynamic lighting highlighting their faces and the textures of the environment. The overall color palette uses muted earth tones contrasted with warm highlights, emphasizing resilience and renewed autonomy. Every corner and street visible hints at a story of sacrifice and revival. A realistic dawn cityscape with soft golden sunlight breaking over a horizon filled with crumbling urban walls and abandoned buildings, their oppressive shadows receding. In the foreground, a diverse group of people forming new alliances, standing amid ruins with hopeful, determined expressions, some helping each other as they prepare for an unknown future. The atmosphere combines a sense of resilience and cautious optimism, with warm light contrasting against weathered concrete and overgrown plants, reclaiming the space. The composition balances detailed textures of decay with vibrant signs of life, capturing the turning point of a forgotten settlement story, subtle mist adding depth and mystery to the scene.